Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PokerNews podcast. This is a live from the World Series of Poker 2019 edition. I am Sarah Herring, joined by Jeff Platt, who's holding it down in the pavilion still. Jeff, you got a big day on your hands, a big day, which you've already done a bunch of stuff, and then you're going to play a poker tournament.
Yeah, just figure I'd fire another poker tournament. The goal this summer, I believe, is to make a day two. We're about 0 for 6 on that front, but got the tag team event, so if I can rely on somebody else to do the hard work to gain some chips, maybe we'll be in good shape. But yeah, you said it, busy day at the World Series of Poker. We miss you, first of all, of course, so we're trying our best to hold it down without you. And we started today, Sarah, with an appearance at the Rio All Suite Hotel and Casino at the 2019 World Series of Poker by one Jeopardy James. James Holzhauer is in the building. He's playing way behind me. He's firing the $1,500 Super Turbo Bounty. He's also firing the 1K Tag Team later this afternoon with Party Poker Chairman and former voice of the World Poker Tour, Mike Sexton. So it is a big day for poker. We have a true celebrity in the building.
Wow. Okay, so two cool things about that. First of all, number one is also tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing Rob Young from Party Poker. So speaking of Party Poker, if you guys have any questions or you guys, have some other sides of the argument, for example, on the side of whether or not it makes sense to get rid of HUDs, let me know so I can have a, interesting dialogue, hopefully with Rob Young. But in terms of them scoring this gentleman for the tag team event, good job out of them. I just read an article in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, which was speaking, sort of giving more of a background about this.
The 1K Tag Team later this afternoon.
Wow, is that you? Are you listening?
Sorry, I was trying to play our Facebook Live so I could keep up with any comments.
It's okay. It happens to me, too.
Go ahead. Las Vegas Review-Journal.
It happens to me, too. But Las Vegas Review-Journal, I mean, really, Jeopardy James has kind of, I think, skyrocketed. It's funny because we're always talking about how do we get poker into the mainstream? How do we get poker into the mainstream? How do we get people in the mainstream to think about poker? And when I was just at my father-in-law's house a couple months ago, he's like, have you seen this guy? He's a poker player. My father-in-law loves Jeopardy. He's like, he's doing everything completely different. And that it's in the Review Journal. I mean, he was on week after week after week and taking these really sick lines. He was basically gambling, which nobody does on Jeopardy because he's an intelligent gambler. And he just totally crushed and dominated, like better than anybody ever. So what was it like to meet him? Is he just like, does he seem like a total degen? Obviously, he's playing 2 bracelet events in one day already, right? That's his schedule.
Yeah. It's funny. It's just like you would think he has some degen tendencies maybe, but you also wouldn't be surprised when I told you that he was super analytical. Mm-hmm. Like when he listened, you could tell when he was listening to a question that one of us would ask that he would kind of really think through it. Okay, what's the best way I can answer this in the shortest amount of time? Like, let's just be the most efficient with these answers. He's very nice, very polite. He was funny. But, he wasn't going to give you a 2-minute answer. He was going to give you a little 10 to 15 second soundbite. So it was great that they paired him up with Mike Sexton.
Who's the opposite.
Yeah, Mike Sexton, he'll go on and on. He'll give you some good stuff. So I think to your point, Sarah, it's just really, really good that he's here. His run on Jeopardy was great for gambling, for sports betting, for poker, just for everything involved, just to kind of enhance that reputation. He said that he doesn't look at himself as an ambassador necessarily for sports betting, but he does think that the experience on Jeopardy certainly helped, and it helped that people saw any kind of sports betting or poker playing in a more positive light.
I love it, and I think anytime we can get that, and you and I talk about it always, I'm just shocked, especially like living in Texas now, being from Texas, how many people have such a misconception about poker, about sports betting, about they're more than happy to put their money into the stock market, but they look at poker as more like blackjack than the stock market, and it's just so great anytime you can have somebody who's almost anyone that's like really good at poker is really, really smart, right? But you don't get that much opportunity outside of poker to showcase that intelligence. And so I'm just like so impressed. And honestly, I'm going to see my father-in-law this weekend. It's my niece's birthday, so I cannot wait to be like, oh yeah, Jeopardy James, totally know him. We go way back. Kind of a big deal. All right, so should we, for those who are listening live, unfortunately, you're going to miss this. Although, actually, moving forward, if you send me the clips, I can download them in advance and we can listen to them at the same time. Bob.
And also, I think if you are watching us on Facebook right now, that Sasha was live on Facebook with this. So you'll be able to click on that video, too, if you want to hear the sound, if you don't want to wait for the podcast to be released. But for those of you listening on your podcast app, how about we throw it to some sound from the man himself, Jeopardy James Holzhauer, joined by Mr. Mike Sexton.
Boom.
Yeah.
All right. So for those who are listening, then welcome back. And there has been literally, I have been gone. I left Vegas on Saturday, and I was just saying to Jeff, it is absolutely bananas. So Saturday I was flying, Sunday I was busy, and now it's like all of a sudden the entire landscape of the World Series of Poker has changed in the last 2 days. It's so crazy what just 2 days can do at the Rio.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the most interesting stories that have come out of the last 2 days.
I think number one, I think you have to lead with Stephen Chidwick winning his first World Series of Poker bracelet. He shows up in Las Vegas late on day one of the 25K PLO High Roller. He kind of looks at the field. He's like, okay, it's a pretty sizable prize pool. I think I'll jump in the mix. He registers at the start of day two, the very last second that you can register for this tournament, and he goes on to win the tournament. Now, here's a guy who I think, Sarah, we've talked about this list a lot, best players to have never won a bracelet. I mean, he probably had to have been at the top before the summer, right? Especially with the way he's just exploded towards the top of these high roller rankings within the last couple of years. And he usually grinds a full summer, but this year he and Maureen have a lovely new baby as a baby daughter. They couldn't come till a little bit later. And so this time he arrives in town and wins one of the toughest tournaments, one of the most prestigious tournaments out there. How about that for Stevie Chidwick?
It makes me so irritated because actually last year I had him on my list of players. I'm pretty sure I had him as like player of the year or like either way. No, I think I had him to win the 50K and maybe anyways, he was definitely winning a bracelet last year in my list. And this year I didn't have him to win a bracelet because I knew that he was just making a baby and wasn't coming, right? So, but I had done a video earlier this year, and if you guys haven't checked it out, go ahead and check it out. It's basically I just asked a bunch of professional poker players who they thought would be a player who didn't have a bracelet yet, who would get a bracelet. And Martin Jacobson sent me this message on Saturday, and it's just a picture of Stephen Chidwick winning the bracelet.
So good.
And he's like, well, he's like, in hindsight, this was a terrible pick given that this was the first event he played this year, but LOL, what do I win? And I'm sorry, Martin Jacobson, I have no money. I'm poor. And
yeah, you don't win much.
Yeah, I can't help you, but it's definitely like a good job out of you. And while I'm just looking at my phone, I wanted to let you guys know also, we spoke briefly last week about a bet basically Sean Deeb has a bet with everyone. But this was a bet we spoke about with Johnny Vibes and Sean Deeb, which we weren't 100% sure about the exactly what the stakes are, exactly what was going on. So he said, hey, listen to the podcast, and here is my and Sean's bet so far. For the fans, Sean Deeb and I have booked even money, my WSOP ROI versus his across the 11 WSOP events that I play. Joe Ingram has escrowed the 10K total, and we have a 5K bounty on each other. It's going to be a great summer. And he says so far, his payouts are $11,612, and Sean's are $750, crushing him so far, but have another 4 events to go. And then actually he just said that he just cashed, he texted this morning, he cashed the monster stack. So it's interesting because it's just on events that they're both playing. Because I was going to say, I'm like, Sean's definitely up like plus more than $750K for the summer. He just final tabled like another event, right? Just last week he was final table.
And he's deep in the 10K PLO also.
Yeah.
But to your point, mutually played events, that makes a lot more sense.
And
you said 11 of them?
Yeah.
Total?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they've done 4 events so far, and that's really interesting. I don't know. I think that's an interesting bet, and especially because after all this stuff with the, quote unquote markup police or whatever it was, I had actually thought that Johnny had even sort of conceded that it was slightly more maybe than he technically might have been worth, or I don't even understand what the appropriate vocabulary is for what someone is worth, but that. Because he has all this content and does all this other stuff, he's still got to get paid. But so the fact that he would take even money against the WSOP Player of the Year last year is definitely putting his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, that's bold for sure. Again, Sean D, Sean D is one of the best players out there. And I mean, Johnny Vibes has said in the past, like, he's not a tournament player, but he's been studying, he's been putting in work. He's had a couple of good runs so far. Deeb is coming. Hopefully for Johnny Vibes, or from Johnny Vibes' standpoint, that Deeb just sticks to the mixed games for now. But if they do have those mutually played events on the schedule, Deeb will make a run sooner or later. So now it's going to be all about holding them off. But that's cool that he was just down to do just an even money, didn't ask for odds or anything of the sort. Just like, let's do this. The events that I play and you play, like, let's go to war. Let's battle. I love that. I love that kind of
poker,
competition.
Right? And it's like, put your money where your mouth is. Like, you can talk, everybody's talking trash on Twitter and doing whatever they're doing, but then it's like, boom, like, okay, let's see it. And Michael Boyle just said, seems like a crazy year overall. All the best to never win. People keep winning. So I think that clearly moves us into... In the 2 days that I was gone, not only did Stephen Chidwick win a bracelet, but Ari Engel finally won a bracelet.
Ari Engel does it. He just walked by me. I wished him congratulations. Of course, he's just on to the next one, right? Like, he wins the $2,500 No Limit Hold'em event. It was a strong field late in that tournament, and Ari reigned supreme. Bracelet number 1 to go along with $427,399. Ben Keyline at that final table. David Bakes Baker, Ryan Olisar, Josh Aria was there as well. I know Kristen Bicknell was deep. Mark Radoja was deep. Matt Berkey was fairly deep in this one. And good for Ari. Nobody grinds harder on that tournament circuit. He's off to all sorts of stops across the country. So it is a well-deserved bracelet, to say the least. So I said I talked with Ari for a little bit. Can we rewind just a touch to Stephen Chidwick? Because after he won that lovely bracelet, we were able to catch up with him and ask him what his first WSOP bracelet meant to him.
Oh, my gosh. Sorry, guys. I've got to write down the time code really quick.
Time code.
12:30, we're looking at Stephen Chidwick. So, as somebody who has, been in this poker scene for a little bit, as somebody who's interviewed the best, who's interviewed the greatest, Stephen Chidwick is someone who doesn't really show a lot of emotion either on or off the felt. And even I've done some like funny videos with him, and sometimes I can't even get like a smile cracked. So tell me, what was he like after he won this bracelet?
I think he was actually a bit in shock when we were talking with him. He couldn't stop like looking down at the bracelet and playing with it a little bit. And it's like, and I think he said it too, it was a surreal moment for him. I mean, I think, he would never say something like this, but he's obviously good enough to have won a bracelet in the past, right? He just hasn't run particularly well. He's one of the best players in the game, no question about it. And so I just think for him to finally accomplish that, his list of poker accomplishments is super, super long, but it's always been missing that World Series of Poker bracelet. So I think to win that meant a lot to him. Along the lines that you were talking about, he's not flashy. They asked him when he wanted his bracelet ceremony, and he's just like, no, thanks. They're like, no, you get a bracelet ceremony. And he's like, no, I don't want to bother anybody. Like, no, we're going to do it during a break in the tournament. He's like, yeah, no, I don't want one. Thank you, though. He's just so nice. He's so down to earth, and he just doesn't need all the attention. He just doesn't need it, doesn't want it. Again, like he said, doesn't want to bother anybody. I like him. Major props to him.
And what was Marine and his baby around, or was that?
So Marine came in for the end of his tournament run when he had almost all the chips against James Chen, but the baby was not allowed in even for pictures, unfortunately. I do think, though, the Poker Central guys went outside with the Chidwicks and Baby, and they got a couple pictures. So check out PokerCentral.com for those.
Oh my gosh, I'm just like stalking. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cute. They're such a great couple too. I just love them too. All right, so just congratulations, you guys. If you're out there and you're listening, congratulations. And like, let's just keep the train moving, right? Because there was a
first time winners.
Another one. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, how about this? Luke Schwartz, one of the most entertaining players in the game. He takes down the 10K limit, deuce to 7 triple draw event, wins a little bit more than $273,000. That's another event that's going to have a stacked field. Johannes Becker finished in 3rd, Mark Gregorich in 4th. Your boy Calvin Anderson finished in 6th. Again, tough field. Again, a player that's definitely deserving of a bracelet. I haven't seen Luke Schwartz around that much in the last couple of years. I don't know if you have, but he is able to get the job done and get that first bracelet. So we have Chidwick, Engel, Schwartz. Those are just within the last couple of days. We had Ismail Bojang win his first about a week ago. Isaac Barron won his first a couple of weeks ago. So it's just, the series, like the list of best to have never won a bracelet has taken a huge hit this year.
Well, in terms of where he's been the last few years, what I remember is him talking shit to Doug Polk like 2 years ago, which was awesome. And they had like a little mini battle going on. And so I hope that this can maybe like stir up a little bit of extra Doug Polk, Luke Schwartz drama, maybe. But I appreciate, because he basically just said that he was sort of notorious for being, saying lots of crazy things when I first came into poker, maybe exactly, like 10 years ago. And he said maybe the old me would have just gotten frustrated and tilted, but I took a deep breath. He talked a little bit about growing up, maturing. So for those listening, I'd say this speaks to my story that this is going to be the year of everybody like growing up, right? When Luke Schwartz really does an interview and in the end he's like, oh, I was really like taking it easy. And that's when we've come full circle. Yeah. We've come all the way around. And speaking of, have you seen Doug Polk around besides his like trash talk? And did you watch the vlog where he kind of like trash talks the vloggers?
Yeah, I did. That was really funny. And I think most of the vloggers took it in pretty good spirits. And I thought that was really well done. That was really well produced, and I laughed out loud a couple of times at that one. Doug Polk came in and played the 10K heads up, and then I think he came in to sweat just a very, very little bit of one of the final tables that we had. I don't remember which one it was. Maybe it was the 50K. I'm not quite sure. He will be back for the main event, or so he says. But it's not like he's all over the poker world and keeping up with the news. But I am curious on his thoughts if he saw that Luke Schwartz won a bracelet.
I am definitely curious his thoughts also. I hope he addresses this in his next video. And I see that Calvin Anderson was 6th in this event, which is another one that he's gone deep in. And everyone knows I have Cal Anderson for my player of the year this year. So
gonna need some help.
I know. So I'm coming on to the player of the year points calendar, and it looks like Dan Zach is back up at number 1. On Wednesday last week, it was Upeshka De Silva who was in the number 1 spot. Dan Zach had held out for the first 2 weeks. Looks like Dan Zach is back on top. Then we've got Scott Clements in 3rd and Ishmael Bojang in 4th. So Sean Deeb in 5th, Ari Engel in 6th, Frankie Odell 7. So it's a in terms of the Sean Deeb v. Daniel Negreanu bet, it looks like Sean Deeb is in fact way ahead right now.
Yeah, wow. Remember, we were talking after Daniel finished in 2nd in the stud, and we thought that would get him close to the top 10. I guess we were probably a little off.
We're ridiculous. I don't even see him in the top 100.
I see him. He's 26th.
Okay.
Give us a little more credit than that, Sarah. He's 26th right now, but everything seems relatively wide open. I think we've hit about the halfway point in the summer. We're a little past it as far as number of events are concerned, but nobody's really run away with this one yet. I wouldn't even call Dan Zach's lead comfortable, so it's still it's still a wide open field. I mean, Sean Deeb has a real chance today, considering I think he's third in chips with 50 left in the 10K PLO, which is going to issue a lot of points for Player of the Year. But we also, Sarah, today's a big day because we had the 50K Poker Players Championship, one of the biggest tournaments of the summer. That starts this afternoon. That one is always super exciting, especially with Phil Ivey around this summer. With Ivey in the mix, that just caps it off. We're going to see Ivey and Negreanu and Hellmuth and some of the old school superstars also. I can't wait for that one.
Wow. Oh my gosh. This is all getting so exciting. The 50K Poker Players Championship, I'm actually depressed I'm going to not be there for that one. That's always, I think especially from the poker players, the best and the best in the game, this is the one that they all look forward to. This is the one that they want the most. And before we let you guys go, I want to mention, let's talk a little bit about some of the other stuff going on. Whether or not anyone cares, we did have the ladies event. That was basically when I left, that was still the rage going on. And obviously I have a lot of lady friends. So
yeah. And that was a fantastic turnout too. I think 968 entries, up from 696 last year. Now they did have a re-entry this year, but still I think the World Series has to be very pleased with that kind of turnout. And maybe, just maybe, Sarah, we'll see an increased turnout of women in the main event. I'd love to get your thoughts on women in poker, just one of these days. I know that's a topic that you
This is funny.
I'm down to discuss.
In fact, I'm going on a poker podcast, the Rec Poker Podcast. I'll be on it tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, and the topic of discussion is women in poker. So
there we go.
I'm sure I'm going to have some extremely popular opinions. But something that I thought was really interesting about this was the first time that they, like you mentioned, had added the re-entry option, and actually that it didn't change the buy-ins more or the entries more, I think really does showcase how many women are in this field that are A, not professional poker players, and B, that this might be the biggest event that they play all year. This might be the most money that they put in. And so for me, I think it really is reaffirming of the need for and the special environment that the ladies event creates that invites people that maybe, are not firing every 1K and not firing every 1,500.
Yeah, I think for some women, this is effectively their main event. They're going to come to Vegas for a couple of days. I think the World Series did a good job at putting in the warm-up tournament the night before. It was sort of like 150 deep stack or so. And that was Ji Young Kim who won it. She won $167,308. She beat Nancy Matson heads up. Lexi Gavin made the final table. She finished in 6th. And I know last year's runner-up, Jill Pike, made the final 2 tables. And the 2017 runner-up, Deborah Worley-Roberts, made the final 3 tables. So a couple of really cool. Her. Yeah, a couple of really cool storylines. They call her Deb the Destroyer, I believe.
She's a wild woman. She likes to drink and talk and be crazy. And I've definitely interviewed her a few times over on the other side of the pond. And she's fantastic. So yeah, I think it was at least worth mentioning. And South Korea, we were talking about, bracelet countries that haven't won bracelets yet. And I'll have to look, but it seems like if they have won a bracelet before, at least, it's not that common, I would say.
Yeah, Sean Yu won a bracelet for South Korea in 2017. So this is the second one for South Korea. So not that common would be correct.
Yeah, right on. Way to go. And a woman, check it. What up? And finally, day 2 of the Monster Stack. Everybody loves the Monster Stack. Basically, since its inception, it's been one of the most popular tournaments. And it's coming back today with my boy, Andrew Moreno, Amo Fosho. So that's Johnny Vibe's brother, Timo's brother, coming in with a massive chip lead. And actually, I want to let me check his Hendon, but I know he took maybe 6th in a bracelet
that's
event.
Right.
Was it in the Monster
Stack?
Yeah,
in 2016 for more than 215K. So he has more than 2 million in chips. That's about 100 big blinds. Just 457 players remain. Monster Stack, you said it, Sarah, it is one of the most popular tournaments, but the attendance has gone down year after year since 2014. And I'm sure that's because, all of the events now are effectively Monster Stack.
Right.
Now they give the Monster Stack even more chips, but you're getting the really, really good and deep structures everywhere. So maybe that's taking away a little bit from the Monster Stack. It certainly took away from the Marathon this year. So there might be a couple things for the World Series to reevaluate. And then maybe, the structures are, I hate to say it, but like too good. Almost half the field bagged after day one. Maybe that's too many. Maybe day one should be more meaningful. I don't know. There's some work left to do in the structures, but clearly, the World Series has conquered the market, right? For this level of tournaments, from anywhere from $400 to like $1,500 or so. I mean, they are just getting absolutely massive turnouts for this $800 deep stack yesterday. They got almost 4,000 entries.
It's so
for a one flight thing. It's just absolutely remarkable.
It's
what they're doing this summer.
$1 million. I mean, that's when we talk about life-changing money. Like for me, $100,000 is life-changing money, but $1 million is life-changing money to anyone. I mean, like a lot of people, let's say. And I'm super happy because I know that Andrew, after his bust in sixth in this event, I had been on his rail, and he was just heartbroken. Everybody, when you get that close, you feel like how often are you going to get that close again? And I spoke to him just last week, and let's be honest, I spoke to his wife, which is basically like speaking to him. But she just said he's just in such a great place, and he's just such a different poker player and a different person. And I think that's, again, it's one of the things that we're really seeing is a lot of these poker players, as they evolve as people, they're also evolving as poker players, and they're able to handle beats differently. They're able to put on pressure with less aggression and more just calm. And, if anybody is going to be really devastating with a massive stack, it's somebody who's a cash game regular. I think for someone with 100 big blinds who's not a tournament player as much, that's like the perfect place for him to be. Oh, now I have to watch and pay attention and sweat because this is really serious. It's all going down.
Yeah, and in the chat, Sean McCormack, boss man at Aria, sends us less chips, less levels. Now I know that Aria has effectively, Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, perfected their structures for the high roller events when they have a TV schedule, especially a streaming schedule. They know that, okay, we can narrow it down to a range of one or two levels where this is going to be over by. And unfortunately, the World Series has not figured that out yet, at least this summer. I think they have a general idea of the day, but with these much deeper structures, streams were planning to go on with 6 players left at noon on a certain day. And then they're coming back on that day with like 21 players. So then it's like really awkward for the stream setup and for the tournament as a whole and for extending tournaments an extra day, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely some work to do as far as those World Series of Poker structures go, which we've talked about for the last 15 podcasts that we've done or so.
Yeah, and I also think it's so great that they're trying these things, though, because I think the worst case scenario that you can get in almost any industry or any situation is just repeating and recycling the things that have already been done. So even though it has caused some problems and it's definitely been like a little bit dramatic, I'm just so excited to be in an industry and in a world where we're just constantly like pushing boundaries and trying things and seeing what works and doesn't work. And I love that the poker players are so smart that they get it figured out right away.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to have complaints on both sides of the aisle too, regardless. And so the World Series of Poker took their most drastic step this year in changing their structures, and you have to give them credit for that. And the attendance proves that a lot of people really, really, really liked what the World Series of Poker did. I'm just saying now it needs some fine tuning, some tweaking, and I'm not breaking any news here. I think that they know that, and they've been willing to make changes on the fly. Like I know the Raz event yesterday. What's up, Mike? How you doing, man? They changed the schedule of that. They changed the structure, I should say. Boom, like a day before, and they got that thrown into the mix, and players really enjoyed it. They made day one more meaningful, and I just think they're willing to listen to players' feedback and make changes based off of that feedback. And so it's just a process. I think, again, they're doing a great job as far as logistics are concerned this year. Being able to manage these, 18 million player fields on multiple tournaments is pretty sick. It's pretty incredible.
Well, before I let you go, Jeff, we got to talk about what becomes like the subject of the podcast for at least 10 million episodes until we finally get it all figured out, which is the 2019 Hall of Fame nominees.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Have been announced. So opinions are about to go. Let's get it. And I haven't even looked yet. So I'm looking now. Let's talk it out. Yeah, let's talk it out.
Okay, so we have 10 finalists for the 2019 Poker Hall of Fame, and up to 2 will be selected. So here are your 10 in alphabetical order: Chris Bjorn, David Chu, Eli Alezra, Antonio Esfandiari, who's the only new finalist out of this bunch, Chris Ferguson, Ted Forrest, Mike the Mouth Mattisau, Chris Moneymaker, David Oppenheim, and Huck Seed. Those are your finalists for the 2019 Poker Hall of Fame. What are your initial thoughts?
Okay, so this is what always happens, though, right? We have to discuss the criteria. Now, we both know that just the same as how I felt about the 25K fantasy draft and about basically everything else, I think policies and rules are meant to be like guides, but not necessarily meant to be like the most important things about everything. Like, I think using logic and intellect is probably infinitely more important than following rules. But the criteria should be played against acknowledged top competition. And this is, in fact, when we get into the situation sometimes of whether or not like tournament directors or other like people who have been influential in poker should be involved, which I think they should be. But they have to be at least 40 years old, played for high stakes, played consistently well, gaining respect of their peers, stood the test of time. Or for non-players now, all right, throw it in, contributed to the growth and success of the game of poker with indelible, positive, and lasting results. So when I look at this, I unfortunately am automatically going to be, I think, shaded by being in the media. So I'm always going to be more interested in people that I find more interesting, people who I think reach more people, or some are people that I think are I'm more inclined to want them, right? Which is kind of terrible because, for example, David Chu, he has like a zillion bracelets, like 6, 7. I don't know. I interviewed him on his 5th bracelet like 3 years ago or something. And, but I knew who he was, but I would argue that most people, especially in this day and age, if I asked, like, do you know David Chu? They may or may not know him. He's a sicko. He's amazing. But I'm always going to be inclined to be more into, say, the Antonio Esfandiaris. Yeah. Everyone knows that I love all the people that played on Poker After Dark, like old school style. So, of course, you know, Ted Forrest, Chris Ferguson, Mike Mattisau, they're all in there for me. How did Chris Moneymaker not make it last year? Like, just Chris Moneymaker just needs to get in, like, already, right?
That's definitely the one that stands out to me as the must-have for your 2019 Poker Hall of Fame class. Because, like, he checks all the boxes, and he checks the non-player box also. He's contributed to the overall growth and success of the game of poker with indelible, positive, and lasting results. I mean, that is Chris Moneymaker in a nutshell. One of the best ambassadors that this game has ever had. The creator, effectively, of a boom, of an effect that has his own name attached to it. I think he is a must for this Hall of Fame. And I'm kind of with you. You know, I'm probably biased in a sense towards the personalities of sorts, those who, you know, not only play well, but give us a little bit extra from a media perspective, from a broadcast perspective. And so then, I want Antonio to be in, and I know he'll be in one of these days. I want Ellie to be in, and I think Ellie will be in one of these days. I don't, you know, when you look at Chris Ferguson, you can take a very polarizing approach to that, right? Because on the felt, he's, you know, very clear, one of the best players, especially in World Series of Poker history. Like, there's just no question about that. But with his ties, his negative ties to full tilt off of the felt, I don't see a scenario in which he ever does get in, and really probably ever should get in, unless he changes his stance on what he wants to say to the public. So those are kind of my thoughts. On one end, like Moneymaker, shoe in, let's get him in no matter what. On the other end, Ferguson, he's got to stay out at least for a while.
So I think it's interesting because actually just to address Mario, yes, rules are obviously based on information and knowledge. But for example, having players who don't play high stakes but have made a huge impact on the game, or maybe players who other players don't consider to be super good, does that necessarily mean that should keep them out of the Hall of Fame? And basically what I'm talking about is Chris Moneymaker. So what I'm saying is, yes, the rules are important, but also like some things I think go above and beyond the rules, and you have to use your brain to figure those things out. But so I think it's interesting because one of the things, so Mike Mattisau now has been in the mix for 3, maybe 4 years. And when he first came into the mix of potential Hall of Fame nominees, a lot of people were like, but, he's like done drugs and he's been like crazy and he's said all these things. And so then it comes down to these questions of, then when you are looking at the criteria, it's like, how much does a player's, I guess, integrity or moral compass, how much do those things play a role? And I don't know how clear that is. Now, I would also say, though, we've had stuff come up about Elliot Lesra, right? Which may or may not be true. We've had this crazy stuff with Chris Ferguson. Mike Mattisau's had plenty of things with owing people money. And so then it kind of, I don't know, it's interesting because we're in this weird industry, and I am hesitant to like become the moral police, but at the same time, for example, what happened with Chris was so devastating to the community as a whole that it's kind of like, it's really hard to separate his, business life, I guess, whatever you would say, from his impact on the game. Yeah,
and to go to your point, I should say, one of the rules says played consistently well, gaining the respect of peers. Does that mean that you're gaining the respect of the peers purely by your play on the felt, or are those, moral standards being applied by your peers in that specific point? It's in the same line. Like if there are separate lines, one was played consistently well, one was gaining the respect of peers, then I think, Ferguson just would never, ever make it. But since those two phrases are kind of grouped together, it makes you wonder if all you need for Hall of Fame criteria is the respect of your peers on the felt. And in that case, played poker against top competition, 40 years old, played high stakes, played consistently well, respect appears on the felt, and stood the test of time. I mean, strictly according to the rules, I'm not saying I think he should get in, but based on those 5 points that I just laid out, he is very deserving of the Poker Hall of Fame. It's that key, like, circled area, respect of peers, and whether or not that it should apply to off the felt actions as well as on the felt. And somebody in the chat, I think it was Michael, said kind of a Pete Rose rule for Ferguson, which kind of makes some sense. Pete Rose, a guy who bet on baseball, one of the greatest baseball players to ever play the game. And a lot of fans believe he should be in the Hall of Fame because of what he did on the field. A lot of fans believe he should not be in the Hall of Fame because of what he did off the field.
Wait, what did he do off the field?
Bet. Like as a manager, he bet on his team to win during like the actual games.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's just a really tough argument. And on this list, this specific list of 10, when only a maximum of two can get in, Chris Ferguson is not going to get in.
Okay,
right?
So what's your like snap call to right now?
I think I would go Moneymaker, like by far and away. Mm-hmm. And then there's a drop off for me. And then I think I might go with Huckseed, actually. I think I might fire off on Huckseed. 4 bracelets, more than $7.5 million, was one of those old school legends that you talked about, who we saw all the time on Poker After Dark. I think he would be my second, but if I had the choice, I would only induct Chris Moneymaker this year. I say 2019 Poker Hall of Fame should be all about Moneymaker.
All about Moneymaker. Well, I'm all about Moneymaker too. He's my number one. But I actually think I'm with Mario. Antonio is my second choice for lots of reasons. I mean, he won the big one. He's been around for ages. He was part of that community that I think really helped to build poker when it wasn't a huge thing. And then also now he's transitioned into doing commentating, which I think is another way, Jeff Platt, to build the game and to help, people understand more about the game. And it's funny because I feel like since the Nick Schulman, if you will, era of commentating in the last 3 or 4 years, I feel like Antonio has been sort of overlooked or forgotten, in how I thought Antonio was a fantastic commentator. And I think he did a lot during the World Series of Poker, especially during the main event, to help explain really complicated poker things to an audience that maybe didn't really understand what was going on. And he's funny and fun. Yeah, that's a really good point. You're making me reconsider this. I have Antonio very high on the list. I mean, Antonio is going to make it one of these days. Yeah. No, right. He's a new finalist this year. I think he's a lock for making it in the next 5 to 7 years or so. And what he brings to the wider scope of poker fans, those people who are just going to turn on ESPN for the World Series of Poker main event and that's it, is really valuable and is really important. So I don't know. We'll see. Well, let me just ask you this before we let you go, Jeff. You're about to play the tag team event. This is a super fun event. I think it has a similar vibe to, say, like the ladies or whatever, where people are just like having fun, trying to win a bracelet, but enjoying themselves. I know you mentioned that this was a friend of yours, maybe like a roommate or something, but can we get a little more details so we know like who we're rooting for?
Yeah, it's an old college friend of mine. His name is Dave Consolazio. We used to call him Vegas Dave, but then that weird Vegas Dave sports bettor guy came out and is like a total fraud and just a con artist. So we decided to move away from the Vegas Dave moniker. So just calling him Dave. Yeah, he's an old college friend. We went to USC together. We both love poker. We both aren't very good at poker, so it just seems like a good team. He's a fun guy. We're gonna have a blast. It's gonna be great.
I
think this is important. One final note on the Hall of Fame, because Michael mentioned this in the chat, and this has been a hot topic throughout the last week or so since the nominees have been announced. Guys, do you know if there's a new process for builders, quote unquote? Thinking of Matt Savage, Sean McCormack, and others for Big Blind Ante, Jack Effel, Kerry Katz, Rob Young, etc. There is no specific category for that. You heard Sarah read off kind of the rules for non-contributors, non-players, I should say, but contributors to the game. Maury Eskandani, great example of that. He made the Poker Hall of Fame. So I kind of think Robbie Straczynski suggested this on Twitter, that maybe every year you induct 1 to 2 players and 1 contributor or builder, as Michael called it. Like Matt Savage is going to get in. Jack Effel, Kerry Katz, Sean McCormack, Paul Campbell, Rob Young, all of these guys are going to get in eventually. It's just, maybe we need to speed up the process a little bit, because the Hall of Fame might be a little bit behind as far as inducting some of these contributors to the game. Sean says he's a player. Sean, I love you, but I guarantee you will not be inducted based on your playing status. Well, at least not as of now. But as a contributor to the game, you are in my book, my friend.
I do think that it should be something that's maybe like every other year or whatever, that there should be like something kind of separate which allows those players to or those contributors to get in, because it's also really hard to compare, like how do you compare like Matt Savage and Huck Seed? Like if you're debating, and
it's impossible.
But I actually, to be honest with you, Matt Savage has been on the list for the last, I think 3 years or so. I was, and always, I think he's been in the top 5 of my thinking, this is somebody who can make it on. And so I'm really surprised to see that he's not on there this year, actually. This is the first time I've ever seen a list that's almost 100%. It's just poker players.
Yeah, that's weird. I saw a little bit. I saw plenty of Savage mentions on Twitter, but I didn't think about that. You're right. He has been a finalist for a while now, so I don't see how he should ever fall off that list. And maybe that just goes to show you that there's a problem with the process.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do some investigating. You guys know us. Hard journalism over here. Sean, maybe you can join in with us. Everybody come help. Gigi says, isn't that what the GPI awards are for? And I mean, I would say kind of, but not really. Like, yes and no. I mean, I think the Hall of Fame is something much different, because it's not like one year. Like the GPI awards are based on like what somebody supposedly did in the last year, where like the Hall of Fame is the culmination of your life's work and your reputation in the industry as a whole. I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I think there's a lot of people that belong in the Poker Hall of Fame that aren't poker players. But it's just too hard to compare all of them. Is that what do they do in sports? Like, do coaches and team managers and stuff, they end up in the same Hall of Fame as the players?
Yeah, they do. And I mean, I think the NFL has a separate category as far as nominees and inductees are concerned. Like, once players or coaches reach a certain age, they move into like a separate group that you vote for. So I don't, or maybe in your finalist list, you have to always put in at least one contributor or something. Maybe that'll help a little bit. I don't know. There's probably a little work to do.
Yeah, well, we'll be on it, you guys. We'll get this worked out for you. Don't worry, we'll get this all settled. All right. Well, we of course wish you luck. As in case you didn't see already, plenty of people in the chat box are excited for you. I'm really excited for you to win that bracelet, or at least get to day 2. That's the most important.
I just want a bag. I just want to put chips into a bag.
One time.
Sign my name on the bag. Just one time.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter how many chips are on there. Well,
no.
I'm rooting for you, obviously, and we're gonna plan on doing this again on Wednesday. But if you are at the final table of the tag team event, for example, or whatever it is on Wednesday, then we will push it. But you guys can keep track of us as we do this all throughout the WSOP on our Twitter. It's at Jeff Platt. I'm at Auntie Chardonnay. We'll always let you know before we're going to go live. Anything else, Jeff, you want to let the homies know before we let them go?
No, I think that's it. I think thanks so much for watching us on Facebook, for listening to us on your podcast app. We do appreciate that.
And a big shout out to our sponsors on this episode, 888 Poker. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Deuces.